My name is Kolin Pope. I am the savior of the future. Like most with the title of savior, I never went out looking for it. No, adventure found me. A short preface. The following story was written in near real time and put online unedited as the events unfolded between 2003 and 2005. It's now 2014, and while I'd love nothing more than to dive back in with a good rewrite that streamlines the ramblings of my 19-year-old self, I think it's important to keep the original intact for posterity. What I can do, though, is congratulate you ahead of time for making your way through it and give my guarantee that every one of the following words is true. Kolin. It began on a very unremarkable evening in August 2003. I was 19 at the time and in my room when the evening silence was suddenly broken by the sound of my dog barking from downstairs.
Kolin,
Moments later, my mom strolled in, telling me calmly,
there's someone at the door for you. He says he's from the future.
Confused yet intrigued, I hurried downstairs to find a man of about 20 that I had never seen before in my life standing on my front porch. He offered me his hand and said,
Hello, my name is Zane Figiam. I am from the future. This is a package for you.
Playing along, I replied, Are these plans for a time machine?
No,
He responded, with a tone in his voice suggesting that I was the one making ridiculous statements. He held up his package, a small, flat object wrapped in newspaper. I pondered it for a moment, then put on my best important face and told him, I accept the responsibility of the future. Zane shook my hand as he hurriedly handed off the package. He said a quick goodbye, turned, then fled out my front gate and out of sight. I rushed back upstairs, eager to discover the contents of the package. Peeling back the newspaper, plastic gemstones and glitter sparkled as I fished a scrapbook out of the makeshift wrapping paper. Ornate decoration surrounded the title, Gem Missile, a tribute to Velocity Gnome. I was startled by its contents as I flipped through the pages. It seemed to be an entire scrapbook devoted to my internet alias, Velocity Gnome, as well as my friends, family, and dealings in cyberspace. As I delved further, I realized some of the information contained was nearly half a year old, proving the scrapbook wasn't thrown together overnight as its look would have you believe. The final oddity was a paper CD sleeve affixed to the back cover. Open in case of future was written on it, which I blatantly disobeyed. Track after track of unfamiliar 80s music played as I spent the rest of the night thumbing through the book. No clues had been hinted at, no explanations left. The ordeal was effectively open and shut with no information on why I had been chosen for such a thing. I answered questions here and there about it for the next few weeks, but as things began to calm down, the entire incident slowly slipped from my memory. In the meantime, I went about leading a fairly uneventful life, in regards to time travel, that is. August rolled around a year from the first encounter, and one morning I woke up to a message on the internet from none other than Zane Figiam. It cryptically foreshadowed an event that would require me to make a small sacrifice of time by traveling to Minneapolis, Minnesota. He wrote that the portal was closing and that I would be required to travel alone by the end of August. Completely ignoring everything my parents taught me about talking to strangers, I checked the dates and let Zane know that I'd be able to come. The next Monday, I discovered a manila envelope in front of the mail slot as I was heading out for work. To my surprise, it held not only a signed letter, a certificate of some sort, and photograph of me, but a round-trip plane ticket to Minneapolis as well.
Dear Mr. Pope, congratulations. You, Colin Jared Pope, have been chosen from a very elite group of young future leaders to receive the prestigious Future Scholarship of the Future, trademarked. This distinguished award is presented once every century to recognize the future accomplishments of young future leaders with enormous potential for future heroics. A ceremony will be held on August 28, 2004 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, to officially present you with the Future Scholarship of the Future, trademarked. Enclosed is your itinerary for one round-trip electronic plane ticket to transport you to and from the event. Your personal driver will be awaiting your arrival. Overnight accommodations will be provided by IF Magazine. as well as complimentary coupons to local eateries and gala events. I look forward to meeting you in person, Mr. Pope. Please be punctual, dress smart, and remember, the future is yours. Future sincerely, Gino Bantam. Bantam and Pinkpool Enterprises.
Now, I am not one to turn down the offer of a zany adventure. In the coming days, I got everything in order, took Friday off early, and flew to Minneapolis. As I stepped out of the gate, I looked around for a sign or clue. Nothing was obvious until I reached baggage claim, where I spotted a man holding a large sign that read Velocity Gnome. He was perhaps only a few years older than myself, wearing a large green sweater and a John Deere hat, neither of which looked to be from the future.
Gnome?
He asked as I came up to him, and I replied simply, yes. I asked him his name as we shook hands.
You may call me the Gatekeeper,
he said.
Gnome, we are not safe here. We must leave immediately.
He clasped his hands in front of him in a very unnatural way and held them there as we traveled through the airport. We made small talk about the future until arriving at the garage. The gatekeeper led me to a very run-down Lincoln Town Car. He held open the door for me and I climbed in the back seat. The interior was nearly falling apart. Junk was everywhere. AMC hammer tape lay at my feet, empty Red Bull cans on the seat, a Dungeons & Dragons sticker affixed to the back window. The gatekeeper clicked on a portable tape recorder that was wedged in between the front seats and said,
They're evaluating us.
I attempted to ask him questions about my upcoming quest during the drive, but he was quite evasive on that topic. I gave up for the time being and just enjoyed the ride.
You never were one with patience.
Okay.
Soon you may learn.
Yes.
About 10 minutes into our trip, he began to rummage through junk on the passenger seat. He produced an envelope and handed it to me without taking his eyes off the road. I opened it up and unfolded the paper within. It was entirely blank on both sides. Confused by this, I suddenly recalled that Zane had asked me to bring a black light. I fished through my backpack, pulled out the light, and shone it on the paper. Gnome, it read. Give this password to your driver. Earthslide, Zane. I looked up at my driver and spoke, Earthslide. His eyes flashed at me in the rearview mirror, then he silently opened his glove box and retrieved a second, thicker envelope.
Do not open this until you are inside the hotel. You have done well, my gnome.
10 minutes later, we arrived at a Hampton Inn.
Punctuality is your friend,
The gatekeeper said.
Meet me at this exact place at 9:45 tomorrow morning, after signing out.
I agreed and moved to shake his hand. He clasped my hand and bowed. I opened the envelope immediately once arriving at my room. It contained 2 papers, a hint sheet, and a crossword with cipher. With the help of friends on the internet, I was able to complete the puzzle in several hours. The result was a password of 001425, which I was to speak to my driver the next day. He would then supposedly bring me to Zane and his associates. The next morning was cheerful and sunny. I washed up and checked out. The trusty town car pulled around the corner as I exited the hotel. The gatekeeper stepped out wearing a chauffeur's hat.
Did you have a good night's stay?
We left the hotel, and after relaying the password to the gatekeeper, took the scenic route through downtown Minneapolis to our destination.
You'll meet Zane, there,
He said.
as well as Shags, your right-hand man. Take this recorder as well and record your conversation. I will wait for your return.
I left the car and headed to the restaurant while looking around for any sign of Zane. I told the hostess that I was there to meet a party under the name Zane. She led me outside to where a kid my age was sitting alone at a table. Zane? We both asked each other at the same time. No, what? Zane told me to meet him here, I said. Who are you?
Shags, but my real name is Tyler. Zane told me to meet him here. Are you Velocity Gnome?
Yeah, my real name is Kolin. So Zane is meeting us here? Are you with them?
No, are you?
No. What the hell? What is going on? We sat back down and proceeded to go over what had led up to us meeting at the restaurant. Tyler said that he lived 5 hours away from Minneapolis in Clearwater. Zane had contacted him a week earlier, and he took the bus there on a similar quest to mine. The only thing we seemed to have in common was both being members of the Something Awful forums on the internet, but that led to no more clues.
Is it on?
Yep.
Alright, my name is Kolin Pope, otherwise known as the Velocity Gnome, and today is Saturday, the 28th of August. About a week ago, or a little more, I was contacted by Zane Figium, who had delivered me a book about a year ago, and he told me he was from the future, and this book was assembled to help me save the future. Anyhow, this most recent package included a plane ticket to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that is where we are now. And yesterday I was picked up at the airport by someone who referred to himself as the Gatekeeper. He drove me to the Hampton Inn Hotel and gave me a puzzle to solve. I spent the night there, solved the puzzle, and today I was taken to a restaurant called Zenos in uptown Minnesota. There I met Shags, otherwise known as Tyler, who also did not know what was going on, and we immediately thought each other to be Zane. However, it turned out that neither of us was, and neither of us had any idea what was going on. And they gave us a camera to document this on tape. So that is what this is going to be. All right.
Do you want to film anything?
Yeah, here, wait. Just go over what's happened to you. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Go over what's happened to you so far.
Yeah, my name's Tyler, aka Shags, and pretty much everything Alan just said is what's been happening. Like, I was contacted like a month ago after I solved this puzzle online that was like filled with like Super Nintendo trivia.
The one that I solved yesterday too.
Yeah, and it's the puzzle that Colin solved yesterday. And then pretty much everything that's happened to him has happened to me. Except I took a bus out here and I met up with him, and now we're going with the same driver everywhere.
After we had gone over our stories, it was near 10:45 and Zane hadn't shown up. Halfway through our meal, though, the waitress came to our table and presented us with an envelope. Gnome and Shags #1 was written on the front. I opened it and held it between us to read. The letter explained that we were to solve several puzzles that day. Zane wrote,
By now you have had time to get acquainted. Gnome, the leader of the resistance, and Shags, his right-hand man and confidant, together at last. Consider this a test and also a lesson. It will prepare you for the hardships that are to come, and unleash in both of you hidden powers you never realized you had. Once inside the first location, you will have to face a robot. Be not afraid, it is not yet sentient, nor does it crave man-meat, but it is nonetheless dangerous. Hidden somewhere among the robot's clothing, you will find a clue leading to the location of the next trial.
Finishing the letter, we were a bit more confused than before.
Ha! Why do I have to be the right-hand man?
Tyler joked. I was just glad to have company along on my adventure. After breakfast, we headed back towards the car. The Gatekeeper recognized my new companion immediately.
Shags!
He cried.
I'm glad you were able to make it.
Yeah. Huh.
Tyler replied, less than enthusiastic. He didn't seem to want to play along, like I had been. I looked to the Gatekeeper. Take us to the first trial,
Yes, my gnome.
he said gently and pulled out of the parking lot. Tyler was fiddling with his camera and took some footage of the Gatekeeper and myself.
You look different than you do in the future.
The Gatekeeper said to Shags. We spent the rest of the ride looking at the scenery and glancing at each other, wondering where we were headed. As it turns out, the destination was a Chuck E. Cheese's. The Gatekeeper dropped us off, let us know that he'd be waiting on our return, and drove away. We immediately got to work, scouring the building for robots. We made our way to the back of the restaurant area and eventually found what we were looking for behind a curtain. Chuck E. Cheese is famous for its terrifying animatronic dancing characters, and sure enough, an envelope was sticking out of one of their pockets. Let's go open this outside, I told Tyler. He recorded as I pulled several papers out of the envelope.
Gnome and Shags. Is that on?
Yeah.
This is Zane View. Magic illusion. Oh, it's this magic eye.
The note was accompanied by a magic eye puzzle and graphic calculator instructions.
Oh, okay, what the instructions?
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, my calculator, right?
Do you know how to do this kind of stuff?
T83. I kinda do. As long as he tells me how to.
Gnome and Shags, congratulations on finding the second clue. You are indeed brave, and yet, no matter. Enclosed are a set of instructions on a magic illusion painting. Shags, you must use your calculating machine for these instructions. Once you have deciphered the instructions, it will tell you a location in the area. Ask your driver for a map if you need it. Go to this location and use the magic illusion painting to find the location of the third clue.
Complicated. Let me see. Whoa, this is long.
See, the problem is I dropped out.
Yeah. No, I can do this, I think.
It's the Gatekeeper.
He tells you, yeah, he's... Hey, nice car.
Sorry.
The Gatekeeper, as promised, arrived as we finished reading the clue.
Good work, Gnome and Shags.
He said, opening the door for us. Tyler immediately got to work inputting the program into his calculator while I tried to make out the magic eye picture. When executed, the program drew an apple with seeds and a cake. After a bit of anagramming and puzzling, we figured out that this meant the next clue was at Cedar Lake, which we asked the Gatekeeper to take us to. As we headed towards our next destination, I was able to see an abstract figure with sculpture written under it in the magic eye drawing. We saw the very same sculpture after a few more minutes of driving and yelled, "Stop!" as we were about to pass it.
This is bizarre.
Tyler and I ran over to the dragon-like sculpture. Nothing interesting was visible on the outside, but as soon as we ducked under it, we spotted a second envelope stuck to the underside.
Is that a beehive up there?
Where?
Right above you.
Oh god, it is.
Maybe that was the second try.
I pulled it off, opened it, and dug out the contents. Besides the usual note, a pirate treasure map was also included.
Give the coordinates to your driver, and he will take you to the final location. Once there, use the map to find where the treasure is buried. You need but dig it up, and it is yours. Once you find it, I will be waiting to meet you in person.
Oh,
good luck to both of you. Godspeed, you know. Godspeed, you Shags.
Excellent. Let's see the map. So...
What is this, the square root of 9 times robot? Is a dot robot?
I think so. It's either 9-point robot or 9 times robot.
Amused, I handed the paper to the Gatekeeper as we stepped back into the car. Without a word, he started the engine, and we pulled away from the lake towards our final destination. After the longest drive yet on our adventure that day, we pulled into a state park in St. Paul.
Let's do a different place. Looks like a parking lot. Let's hit it.
Maybe.
We turned on the camera and walked towards the only discernible entrance to the forest ahead. Some picnickers looked at us strangely as we passed, since two guys with a shovel heading into a forest isn't exactly a normal sight. We smirked and continued down the path. It stayed true to the map, and we eventually arrived at our destination. The big red X between two trees. Tyler put down the camera to scope out the area as I prepared to dig. I stepped down hard on the shovel, and it hit something hard. "It's here!" I yelled. I unearthed a large black metal lockbox. Inspecting it closer, I realized that there was no key. "How the hell are we even going to open this?" I asked. I looked up to find Tyler pointing a phaser at me.
You've gone far enough, Gnome.
"What?" I yelled back, confused and amazed.
That's right, Shags is dead. I killed him and took his place. You're just Zane's little errand boy. I'm
Maggie Hark, and I won't let you succeed.
"You can't do this. You won't win," I dramatized, trying to figure out what to do.
I will take this.
Maggie said, grabbing the lockbox.
You will not live to see tomorrow. However, in accordance with future code, you get a saving throw.
He pulled out a 20-sided die, raised it above his head for a moment, then threw it along the ground towards me. The camera still rested next to his feet, recording everything. I picked up the die and asked him, "What is the saving throw versus?"
Versus phasers.
I rolled the die around in my fingers, then tossed it towards him. He bent down to grab it, keeping the phaser pointed at me.
Arrgh.
He screamed, looking at the die.
You live this time. But this isn't the end.
Maggie dropped the locked box but grabbed the video camera. He let out a laugh and ran away down the path. I stood there for a bit, alone in the woods in Minnesota, more confused than I had ever been in my life. After collecting myself, I picked up the box and shovel and returned to the parking lot. Maggie was nowhere in sight. However, the town car was right where it should be, with the gatekeeper standing tall beside it. He cordially opened the door as I drew near, and as I ducked to enter the back seat, I saw another figure already seated. He slowly began to clap.
Good work, Gnome.
Zane? I asked.
Yes.
I assume you are aware then of what has transpired.
Yes. Maggie has escaped, but not forever.
I couldn't remember what Zane looked like exactly from a year ago, but I was sure it was him. He had a bit of a nerdy look, with longer than normal hair and an ill-fitting green Futurettes t-shirt, which appeared to be a basketball team. We spoke of the future, Armageddon, and my role in preventing it as the car sped along the highway. He said I was the leader of the resistance in the future, and I had prepared these trials for myself in the past to be better fit to lead all humanity. Maggie, as it turns out, was a cyborg that had supposedly murdered Shags/Tyler and taken his place for the adventure. I had been lucky, he said, to have escaped from such a deadly foe. Our car left the highway at the airport exit. We pulled up to the drop-off area, and Zane turned to me.
Gnome, you have done well today. You have saved the future. I must leave you now, but do not forget the things you have accomplished today. Goodbye, my father.
The gatekeeper helped me get my things from the trunk, and I turned around to look at them one last time from the sidewalk. Zane suddenly poked out through the window and yelled,
My father!
While making a throwing motion. A tiny key flew through the air, and by luck landed in the crook of my arm. He quickly ducked back into the car, and they sped off. I walked into the airport, checked in, and sat down at the gate. As expected, the key fit in the locked box perfectly, and I swung the top open. Quite a few items were arranged delicately to let them all fit in the box. A VHS tape, a RoboCop 3 Super Nintendo video game, and several other small paper items. Most notably, however, was another scrapbook, similar to the original one from a year ago. Flipping through the scrapbook pages, it became clear that it was going to be just as confusing and bizarre as the original one. There were no hints and no information as to who had planned the entire event. After the once-in-a-lifetime experience I had just been through, though, I was all right with that. All was quiet in regards to the future for the next 6 months. My retelling of the events in Minneapolis had spread throughout the internet, and I had many emails inquiring about it. Nothing from Zane, the gatekeeper, or any of the other people I had met on my trip. Then, on the morning of February 19th, 2005, I woke up to find a private message in my inbox on the Something Awful forums. It was titled, I found your future stalkers. I quickly clicked the link contained within and was shocked at what it displayed.
Reverse engineers, there's someone at the door for you. He says he's from the future. In 2002, Dylan Reif and Joe Korsmo began tracking the internet activities of Kolin, aka Velocity Gnome, an 18-year-old computer gamer. They monitored and recorded Colin's AOL instant messages and gathered information about his friends and family from other sources on the net. Blending this data with scenarios from video games and sci-fi films, they developed a mythology in which Kolin is singled out as the savior of the human race. The story is told in Gem Missile, a tribute to Velocity Gnome, a 40-page book that incorporates photographs of Kolin and excerpts from his personal correspondence. In August 2003, Reif and Korsmo showed up on Colin's parents' doorstep in Chicago. Reif introduced himself as Z Figiam, Colin's mentor from the future, presented him with the book, and left without further explanation. The plot thickened several days later with Kolin posted a detailed description of the encounter to an online gaming forum, along with digital photos of every page in the book. Members of the forum quickly added their own theories and responses, which ranged from close readings of the text and speculations about the gender of its authors, to admissions of jealousy and accusations that Kolin had invented the story in order to get a high rating for his thread, which in a few weeks had received over 40,000 hits. A year passed after this initial contact. In August 2004, Reif and Korsmo mailed Kolin a package containing a photograph of their meeting a year earlier, along with a note, a certificate, and a plane ticket to Minneapolis. Kolin was met at the airport by a man in a beat-up Lincoln Town car who identified himself as the Gatekeeper. For 2 days, Kolin was led around the city in search of robots, buried treasure, and information needed to save the future. Rife and Korsmo involved numerous actors, and another online gamer who, equally baffled, was driven with Kolin to a forest and abandoned there. At some point, Kolin noticed that his new friend had mysteriously disappeared. Quote, "I stood there alone in the woods in Minnesota, with a shovel and a large black-locked box, more confused than I have ever been in my life." Kolin survived the trip and posted a detailed account of his adventure, concluding, "It was a great experience, and I would not hesitate to save the future again, if the chance ever arose." Dylan Rife is an actor and playwright who studies theater at Antioch College. Joe Korsmo studies business and marketing at the University of Pennsylvania. Both are avid gamers and have been playing together for 15 years. Their installation is titled after Kolin's mother's announcement. "There's someone at the door. He says he's from the future."
The place it was being held was called the Carnegie Arts Center and was in a very small town called North Tonawanda in New York. I became determined to track these guys down. Several days later, as I was heading out the door for work, I nearly stepped on a CD on the floor. It had obviously been slipped through the mail slot. The words "Final Documentation" were written on the front in large letters. I ran to my computer and played the CD. Zangief and Maggie Hart walked in from the sides of the screen on a fighting game background. They exchanged blows briefly before a third player, Kolin, my head was pasted on a figure, flew down and destroyed Maggie with laser eyes.